Presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is making a promise to the country's black farmers. The independent candidate says if he wins in 2024, he will give them $5 billion in reparation payments to make up for a debt relief program for minority farmers that was recently blocked. The Biden administration program was halted when a federal judge ruled it was racially discriminatory and therefore unconstitutional. On a recent episode of RFK Jr. podcast, Kennedy said this to John Boyd Jr., the president of the National Black Farmers Association.
That $5 billion is not money that is an entitlement. It's money that was a loan that black farmers were entitled to way back then and was stolen from them through discrimination.
Joining me now, that podcast guest, John Boyd Jr., president of the National Black Farmers Association. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you, Marty, for having me.
What did you make of this statement and promise from RFK Jr.?
Well, look, political-wise, I think it was a very smart move for him. And for the Biden administration, it shows that they should really get off the dime and do this. Basically, what Kennedy said he would do in his first week would, go ahead and settle the case, Boyd versus USA, for $5 billion. That was a broken promise. And I want to make one correction. It was repealed by Congress. So there were many lawsuits that tried to block my measure for $5 billion for black and other farmers of color. But it was repealed by an act of Congress under this administration that caused the actual final decision not to do it. And I've been urging the president, President Biden, to come to the table and have a conversation about what he can do from the administration, which would be provide a settlement through the courts that would resolve this for us and get that. And I've asked for that on News Nation several times. That meeting hasn't been granted, but Kennedy invited me on his podcast, and he made it clear that he would do this within his first week of if he was elected president. So I think it sends a message to the Biden administration, who turned a cold shoulder towards me and not granted the meeting in the first place.
Yeah, well, the invitation stands, and thank you for sharing it once again here. Mr. Boyd, talk about the challenges that black farmers face right now.
Well, and thank you for that question. We have farmers who've been calling right now today. We have 3 farmers that we can't provide farm operating loans for right now. One is for $36,000, the other is for $30,000, and the other is for $52,000 for these farmers to plant their crop. And we can't get banks to come to the table. The Department of Agriculture said in these particular counties that there's no money available to help these farmers. And every time I think about it, it really upsets me that we have $175 billion for Ukraine. Since the World War II, we've told out $318 billion to Israel. So we have billions of dollars to help other countries. And mindful that some of this money was to help Ukraine farmers directly. We had equipment companies that donated equipment to Ukraine farmers. And we're sitting here as citizens in this country begging for help. Foundations haven't answered the call. The government hasn't answered the call. And this administration, the Secretary of Agriculture hasn't answered this call. So someone needs to ask this administration why our black farmers are being sold out right now. As I speak to you, we have farmers facing foreclosure, and the richest country in the world. And it looks like when you say, especially the term black farmer, everybody wants to sue us. But mindful that my daddy farmed side by side with me all my life, one of the best dignified men you ever want to meet. My grandfather, both of them, Thomas Boyd, farmed all of his life. My other grandfather, Lee Robinson, was a sharecropper, farmed all of his life. And here we are, decades later, can't get a farm operating loan in this country. Something's terribly wrong with that picture.
Yeah, and forced to make some pretty difficult decisions as a result.
Yes, and we're looking at that right now, and that's what we're doing. That's why when Kennedy asked me to come on this podcast, I went to talk about the issue, and he immediately said what he would do to fix it, and that's what this administration should do, the same thing. There's other presidential candidates out there. I welcome their call, and I welcome to have those discussions, because we need help, and we need help right now. And we're going to vote for the people that's going to help us. And that's what my message is for across the country. You can't keep taking people's vote for granted And once you get into office, you don't have a meeting. The Secretary of Agriculture hasn't answered one call to have a sit-down meeting with me to talk about why we didn't get debt relief. And I've reached out this week to have that meeting. The president hasn't granted me a meeting. And these are people that I voted for. I was the first Black organization, 130,000 members in the United States, that really supported then President Biden, Vice President Biden, when he was struggling with the Black vote. So this organization helped turn it around for him. And once they got elected, they turned a cold shoulder and a blind eye to this organization.
Well, we'll see if anything changes between now and November. Keep us posted. Thank you, John Boyd Jr., for coming on.
Thank you, Marty, for having me.
Of course.